At this point, we're starting to, really build a team behind this and really get serious about it, really start to get it out there. We had to sort of figure out all the processes and how everything worked and all of these types of things. And we're at the point that, we're there now. We can get this out there. We can really push it. We've got solid support behind it. We can really get it out there in the industry.
Hello and welcome to the Daktronics Experience Podcast. I'm Justin Oxner here with Matt Anderson, and today we're joined by Eric Edens. You are the Camino Solutions Engineer. Can you give us a quick history of your background and how you got to be where you're at with Daktronics?
Yeah, so I started working for Daktronics about 8 years ago now. I'd worked in a couple different venues previously. Came over to work for Dak as a trainer for about 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. Moved into a regional applications engineer role for the past 5 years. And then within the past 6-7 months, moved into this new Camino-focused position.
Awesome. And you mentioned before recording here that you interned with the Cincinnati Reds. Kind of what were some of your experiences kind of leading into Daktronics then?
Yeah. So out of college, I was interning with the Reds. Did a lot of work there. Baseball's a long season. So worked in a lot of different positions there. And then from there, went to work at Old Dominion University. So I ran their productions for football and basketball for about 3 years prior to coming over to work for Dak.
Okay. Yeah, at Old Dominion, we got a chance to go out there and check out their production. They had an on-site event producer doing some cool things out there, so it was good to see that. And that's kind of where you got your start then, and then kind of rolled over into the DAC area. And now you're really focused on Camino. Can we start with just what is Camino? Yeah,
so Camino is our real-time render control solution for LED displays. So it really opens up some creativity with what you can do with your display. You get to work in sort of a 2D, 3D environment with real-time rendered content, so you can build out a lot of unique animations, build a lot of logic and automation into your content, and really just bring the entire level of your show just to a whole new level of dynamics, really. Compared to pre-rendered content, you make a piece of content and maybe it says touchdown, right? Or it's the team's logo, and every time you hit play, it's always going to do the same thing. With real-time render, I can now take that and I can build out different timelines and have it animate from one scene to the next, or automatically change out assets based on data coming in, start to really visualize data, draw charts and graphs and things with data that we can't do without Camino today.
So in my mind, I'm picturing like a television broadcast. There's a touchdown. The number rolls up on the screen. Is that what we're talking about, like doing those type of dynamic things, but on the video displays within a venue?
Yes. I mean, you can definitely do that. Really, that's kind of like scratching the surface of what Camino can do. When you see a lot of the newer like next-gen stats that are out there for different sports, if you look at like the NFL and quarterback passing charts, and they want to highlight different sections of the field that they do well passing to, or they've got a higher completion percentage or a higher QB rating when throwing to certain sections of the field, like we can take and visualize that and highlight them different colors and do different things. Like I said, that you can really display it visually and really just the actual transitions between items. You can make some really dynamic moves, work with 3D content. Really, like I said, just make your show pop compared to what pre-rendered content can do.
Okay, so just instead of like rolling a number, you could have like an entire section slide up, like with a graphic of the player and a whole bunch of different stats on it, and then move around on the board and slide off type of thing.
Right. And you said like the visualization of data, right, is definitely a key thing. The next gen stats, whatever, like there's more and more, it seems like every year. But even thinking back to kind of tie this into your origin story with the Reds, what was it like compared now to then? I mean, there's so many different stats, but the visualization of everything compared to what you did back then, it's got to be, completely different, right?
Yeah, so we were at the Reds at the time. It was a Venus 7000 system in there, so they didn't even have show control with 8000s or anything yet. So we were back in the Stone Ages, it feels like. We weren't doing any of that. It's been 13 years, I think, since I was there or so. Okay. 12, 13 years, something like that. So technology has definitely advanced quite a bit, and this whole idea of real-time render kind of came along in the industry, within the last 8 or 9 years, I think. But at the time, nobody was doing that type of stuff.
I remember it was a big deal to have like on baseball to do the scorecard graphics. For a while, right? That was almost like the tiptoeing into kind of more and more what we're seeing today. But
so Camino's almost like on a whole different control platform. You mentioned Venus 7000. This is not that. It's 8000 or above.
Yeah, so it works on our DMP 8000s. We've actually integrated it to work kind of seamlessly within our show control within Display Studio. So Camino is where we're going to actually make this type of content, this real-time rendered content, but it's still going to get loaded, still going to get played back from your DMP 8000s, still going to script your buttons within Display Studio. So it works directly, integrated in with the rest of the Daktronics show control system.
And I know we'll kind of touch on what's new with Camino here, right? But how long have we, had Camino sounds weird, but how long have we been doing kind of this Camino work prior to talking about what's new today? Yeah,
so the first project we did with Camino at Daktronics was in 2020 with the Texas Rangers. So we actually acquired a company, AJT Systems, a year, maybe 2 years prior to that. We saw this real-time render growing in the industry, and we wanted to get in there. And rather than having to develop a product from the ground up, we went out, we found a company that was already doing some of this type of CG real-time rendered work. Ended up acquiring AJT Systems, brought them in, and started integrating their technologies in, with show control. And then the Texas Rangers were the first project. They still today use it to run their whole main board show. They actually just this year rebuilt their whole show. They've done some pretty slick stuff. Compared to, what they were doing before was cool, and they've just kind of stepped it up, went to a whole new level with it this year. So, the last few years we've done a few more projects with, we did some content for the LA Kings. Last year we worked with the New England Patriots some.
Right, yeah.
But heading into this next season, we've got quite a few projects, in the NFL and, Power 5 football schools that we're working on to bring out this fall.
Was that like a saw it in the industry type of thing of like, oh, people want to be able to do this real-time render and get these updated graphics? Is that kind of where that drive came from? Or was it like somebody saying, oh, our fans really need this more dynamic experience, and that's just the way it's going, and we saw that and we're like, we need to act?
I think it's a little bit of both. Okay. We definitely saw the industry starting to head that direction. But yeah, our users are always driving us, always pushing us to do more. Yeah. We're always getting feedback from them, whether that's when we're installing a new project, doing training, right, or after the fact. We're constantly getting feedback from those individuals. But we definitely saw the industry heading that way and knew to kind of stay in the game, we had to have this type of technology. So like I said, we've been doing it 4-ish years now. Yeah. But I think at this point we're starting to, really build a team behind this and really get serious about it, really start to get it out there. We had to sort of figure out all the processes and how everything worked and all of these types of things. And we're at the point that, we're there now. We can get this out there. We can really push it. We've got solid support behind it. We can really get it out there in the industry.
That's what I was going to bring up was when we, acquired AJT Systems and then started integrating into it. And we all know there's a lot of different things that come with a control system for a live event. So it was, even before that purchase, right, everything Daktronics does with our show control, display studio, content studio, kind of how was that when we did get Camino and kind of integrating it with all of our different products? What was that process like?
Yeah, so I know initially, like when they came on board, that was a big focus. We knew we had others in the market doing this type of work, and that was, a big focus. So I think initially it was pretty intensive to make that integration happen day one. When we acquired AJT Systems, they already had Camino, and it worked as is. So it was, how can we take that product now and just integrate it on our side? There wasn't a ton of work necessarily on their end. They already had a product that could do this type of stuff. It was more so, how do we now get that to play back on our system? How do we now get our data to integrate with that system? How do we now trigger that from our system and figure out all of those pieces?
Yeah. Okay. And we were out at the Patriots then too this year. I know you mentioned that was one of them as well. And talking with Abby and them out there, I think they even did do a shout out Camino on the podcast, but they mentioned a lot too. And I think it was one of the I think it was an IDEA conference that they went to.
Yeah.
And saw it. And I can't remember which year it was, but that's when they saw that and went, oh, Daktronics is up their game now. Like, it's kind of that, okay, we did get a shiny new toy and bring it in and everything. And they said they had to fight a lot, but they said, we need this.
Yeah.
And then they ended up getting it too.
Well, and the feedback we got from the Patriots prior to, kind of moving into this world of Camino was that, they wanted to do more. They were getting this massive new display and they just wanted it to be more dynamic. They wanted their production to pop. They wanted to do more with it. They had all this space. And we have to do something cool, So, we've been at IDEA the last 2 years with it. We're working on something really cool for IDEA this year. Okay. Not gonna spoil anything yet.
Little teaser there.
If you're listening in, we'll have some pretty cool stuff to show up this year at IDEA. But I know the first year we took it there, had some demo content to show off. And I think initially when people saw it, it was kind of like, okay, this is what we're seeing in the industry. But once they saw how it integrated into our system and how simple it was to script the buttons and how simple it was to operate for playback and those types of things, compared to some others in the industry, they were pretty excited about just the ease of use side of it. And, we always talk about powerful and easy to use, right? And they walking by, you could see like, yes, they're doing it. And then once they got in and actually saw how it was operating, they were pretty excited about how simple it was to actually operate.
Yeah. And I think we see this with our technology in general. Sometimes it's our first time ever having a board. In our first year, we got the keys to the car and we just rolled it out of the garage and wanted to not crash it, right? And then they build upon that year after year. It sounds like that's something similar with the Texas Rangers. They had it and then they've kind of pushed the envelope a little more and more. And then even with the Patriots, they had it last year. Now they're ready to change it up and do even more this year. Is that something that you kind of expect every time you go in for the first one? It's like, let's get you started on this and see what you can do that first year and then look to build on it?
Yes, I think the Texas Rangers were a great example there. That we worked with them that first year to build out a lot of their content, and it was interesting because that ended up being like the COVID year in baseball, where everybody played at a neutral site, and the Rangers hosted a lot of those games. And heading into the playoffs and the World Series that year, which they hosted. Colin, that works down there with the Rangers, had to take the content we had built and sort of adapt it for the look that MLB wanted for the playoffs that year. And he was able to take that and do it all himself because he picked it up so well. And then year by year, little by little, they made tweaks and they made changes and stuff to it. And then after they'd run that content for about 3 years, they said, okay, it's time. Well, and they won the World Series. They finally said, all right, let's make a big change here. And they've got a lot of 3D movement now that they didn't have before, and just objects that are animating on and off. And before it was more of a 2D look. And they kind of completely blew it up, started from scratch and did it all themselves. They reached out to us with a couple questions, but realistically they had a vision for what they wanted to do. They understood the tools that were there within Camino and, brought it to life. It's pretty cool.
I remember because we had Chris DeReicher on.
Yeah, we did.
During that time too, talking about them. I think he worded it nicely, but them having the first home game in that new ballpark not be them, right? Have it be for someone else is this bittersweet. They're just happy to be around baseball again, but it was like, we just got this brand new stadium, new control system, but had to go right into the World Series pretty much for it.
But it gave you a season to play with it and figure it out without having to worry about what people thought. So.
Yeah, sure. And you mentioned a couple of different customers for Camino specifically already, and then you mentioned there's a few more coming this year with some Power 5 schools or some pro teams. Has that changed our internal processes to support that, or what's our process look on the Daktronics side of it right now? Yeah, so over the last year or so, we've been really focusing on kind of building the support behind the product. So I've moved into this new position, focusing on Camino, and then we've got a couple new Camino motion designers that really work on internally building this content for customers. So working with our creative department and kind of bringing these customers' concepts to life, right? But we've also had to work on just internally training up, the help desk staff and our training staff and kind of everyone universally to really have support behind this product. But, like I said, we're at the point now that we're pretty confident in it. We've got support behind it. We're ready to roll. So I think heading into this fall and this coming winter, we're going to have, I'd say, at least double to triple the number of sites that we had prior in one season. So I think it's gonna grow legs pretty quick here. It's gonna get out there. Like I said, we'll be back at IDEA again this year. We'll be at NACDA next month talking about it as well. Yeah. So nice. We're ready to make a big push behind this.
Absolutely. And then thinking about, I know you didn't want to give away anything that you're going to show at IDEA, but even thinking of Camino from I don't know, last year to this year? Is there anything new or major you want to call out, or is all this kind of this hush until idea right now, or what's some different improvements that have been made?
I think some of it's not necessarily anything new, like in Camino itself. There's not necessarily any new tools, but getting some of these people. So some of our new motion designers are coming to us from some professional sports teams. Are coming to us from working with ESPN in the past and different places with a lot of experience. So bringing them into the fold and getting ideas and sharing ideas and looking at stuff sometimes going, okay, this is what we want the content to look like, but how can it move? How could we do this? How could we do that? And everyone's got a little different approach to it. So it's we're coming up with a lot of really creative ideas, I think, just versus having one or two people focus on this, having a group of people looking at it now. Well, what else could we do? Or how else could we do this? Or, how could we use these tools differently? We're coming up with some really creative ideas. I
think that goes back to my very basic first scratching the surface idea, like, oh, you make a number animate. And then you're saying, no, now we're doing so much more. And that's with all the ideas of the people that are coming in, bringing in these new ideas and perspectives. And it's saying, okay, we saw maybe what the Patriots did this year. Well, now they might be relaying and we can do some different things and different movements on that board. So they're just kind of taking the basics of it that I mentioned and saying, okay, we're building on this and we're doing even more and even more. So it's kind of exciting. I'm curious to see what you're going to unveil here at IDEA and what these other teams that you mentioned, there's other customers are going to do in the future. So
yeah, I think this fall is going to be pretty exciting. And then, like I said, even heading into winter, so football and basketball this coming season, we've got quite a list of teams that we'll be doing some content with. So I'm pretty excited to start showing it all off.
Yeah. And then when you're making content with Camino, then it can go to different, obviously different sizes because there's different size boards out there, but are you finding, because I think the Patriots use a lot of it even to like on the sides of the board for a while, and then they do some animations. Does it do anything with ribbon displays? Have you seen it used in concourse TVs? Like, kind of where does
does it double up with broadcasts?
Yeah, that's kind of getting at. Like, where does it get used, and where can it be used? I guess.
Yes, I mean really. Any display we've got in venue that we've got our media players driving, we could be using it. Okay. I think to this point, you see it mostly on main video boards, but even like you said, ribbon displays, concourse displays, it really could be used anywhere where people see a purpose for it. Now, one of the nice things about our approach to integrating the real-time render system into show control with everything else was we tried to keep we try to keep the simple things simple. So, when people just want to put some sponsor rotation on the ribbon boards, right? Do that the way you do today. We don't have to touch Camino. We can just drop in some content, make a playlist button, and away it goes. But in those places where you want that added, level of dynamics, that added creativity, you can kind of pick and choose where you want to use it. So you'll see teams like the Texas Rangers, like I said, their whole main video board is Camino. Okay. Ribbons aren't. Then you look at like the New England Patriots and they say, hey, we have these dedicated zones. They had 3 zones on their main display. Sure. In these areas, we want to do more with stats. We want to do more with out-of-town scores. We want to do more with fantasy stats, those types of things, right? That we can really take and visualize and do some cool things with. But the rest of the board, it's going to be more sponsorship focused and live video and that type of stuff. So there's different approaches to it. Open up different possibilities, right? So if you have dedicated zones, you're kind of stuck working within that zone. So if I have a rectangle that's this big, the content stays inside of that rectangle at all times. But if you take the Texas Rangers approach, I can really make the whole board sort of interact now. I can slide things across the display and move things across the display. When big moments happen, it can kind of, take over the whole board. Sort of, you can have content that almost like unfolds or builds out on top of the display. So just kind of depends on what you're trying to achieve. But you see different people, like I said, different displays take very different approaches to it.
Yeah. I'm thinking the Patriots example a little bit more there is they were talking about it and they said, we were displaying these stats before, but we got fan feedback that they didn't think we were displaying them. And then they added the Camino element to it and it gives that dynamic motion that catches your eye a little bit more. And then automatically they said, oh, now you're displaying it. But they had been the whole time. It's just how they were displaying it changed and was more eye-catching, and they noticed that it was actually happening now. So that's a really cool example to say, you're displaying stats, but you're displaying them in a way that will catch the people's eye, let them know what's happening, and they'll be more prone to see that type of stuff, even if it is within that zone. But now, like you said, if it goes more than just the zone, it's even more eye-catching, even more appealing to keep them up to date with those different stats.
Which sponsors love, right?
Yeah, of course.
Get more eyes on something makes a lot more enjoyable for them. So does this, not to go back to your basic question at the beginning, but
I know.
So can it do, and I'm just thinking different types of content that it can do. can it do like lower thirds and score bugs, or is it overkill for that? And like you don't use it for that, you only for these bigger animations, or like what kind of levels can it scale to?
It certainly can, right? So most of what we focus on is driving the LED display directly, right? In actual zones on a display, you know, but yeah, it's the same technology, right? It's built off of sort of a character generator technology. So lower thirds, score bugs, tombstone graphics, all of those types of things are kind of what that technology was built on. What's new is now we're trying to take that and adapt it to LED display versus strictly broadcast. So it's not just inside of that, you know, video window. Now it can be, you know, the whole display. But one of the most powerful things behind it too, and I think the Patriots really like this, is that you can start to automate content. So we can build logic into the content to do simple things all the way up to really, you know, powerful things. So you could have logic written to say, hey, every time the home team has possession and it's a first down, play the first down animation. And it just does it. No one has to click a button. We can write that logic to say, if this scenario is true, automatically do this, right? But I can also, so when we look at like the passing chart we were talking about, maybe trying to highlight different sections of the field, different colors, based on data coming in, I can have it drive that. I can say, hey, if that number is between, say it's a completion percentage. If he's 0 to 50%, make it red. If he's 50 to 75, make it, you know, orange. If it's 75 to 100, make it this color, right? And it can actually start to drive and automate a lot of that content. Whether that's, like I said, playing different animations based on data, or really kind of adapting and changing different assets on the screen.
So really flexible, really customizable. I mean, a lot of feedback on the customer itself of what they're looking to do, and you can kind of help them do almost any of that. You're talking about all these different options for colors, and if this, then that, and it automatically triggers. So very customizable to whatever their needs might be, it sounds like. Yeah, and it's interesting because from a creative perspective before, right, we had a creative group, we'd make content for customers, and we'd have discussions about sort of branding or style or what they wanted things to look like. And now it's like, all right, we got to figure that piece out. But now I also had to figure out what you want it to do and how do you want it to move and what are all of the different pieces you're going to want to show. And there's so much more to it now. And it's funny because I think sometimes you talk to customers and it's like overload of like, we almost have to plan out a big chunk of your production now. And like we're talking where we were in like March or April and talking about football and how you want to run your production. They're like, I'm still running baseball. Like I don't know, you know, but it's a different way of thinking. But like I said, it's nice that you can really take some of that pressure off the operator from having to click certain buttons every single time there's a penalty or every single time there's a first down or every single, you know, whatever it is, right? To let it just automate it and let your operators focus on, you know, things that are a little more important.
And I'm kind of thinking then, I mean, you have these list of discovery questions essentially, right? But and I know you're probably involved on the pre-sale side of it to help, you know, show customers what it can do so hopefully they purchase it. But you're on that side. But then is it, all right, a customer decides to go with us and they want that, then it's like, all right, bring in Eric and his group to sit down and do a kind of like brand meeting with the customer. Is that kind of how it goes then?
Yeah. So to this point, I'll be involved. Different people from the creative group. Kyle Beck's been involved in a lot of them so far. And then whoever sort of like the region project manager is will get involved. But yeah, we'll have that meeting where, like you said, first we'll talk about style with the customer and what their brand guidelines are and how they want things to look. But then, it's like, okay, so here's your board. You know,
what do you want to do with it?
What all are we trying to show? You know, here's the different, you know, we show them a demo so they see certain things they can do, but then it starts to spur ideas like, ooh, could we do this? Could we take this stat and do that, right? They're fun conversations. But a lot of times it's, just trying to go, all right. And sometimes you have to think through it too. Like you kind of have to think through the logic of like, okay, so I have this piece of data. And if that data does this, could I make this tool do? Yeah, I think we can do it. You know,
those dots.
Right. You got to sit there and connect the dots like in your brain like before you promise it to them. Go, yeah, we can do that. Like you're kind of thinking it through in your head. Like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we can do that. So like I said, they're fun conversations, like little brain teasers almost on these projects. So
I can imagine it differs too, right? You might have a customer that has a small video board and then going to a large one, or just someone that has a large one and going larger because they may be more familiar with things they want to do versus maybe leaning on you and your group heavily if they don't even know what's possible with the new board.
Right.
Because we always say like it's a new board's great, but it's all about the content that's on the board to actually make it stand out. Like, do you have bad content in, bad content out, or something like that?
You want to use the display to actually enhance the experience instead of just have the black box out there.
So it's a bigger display. It's like, okay, well, if you really want to utilize it correctly, then you just do that.
Well, and sometimes, right, it's a race in every league out there to have the biggest, have the best, have the brightest, have, whatever it is, right? And sometimes you get in that situation and it's like, all right, we bought all these displays. Now help me. What do I do with it? And we've run into that. We're like, we'll do a demo. We'll talk to a customer. They'll be like, yes, I definitely want to do this. And we set up the next conversation and we're like, all right, what do you want to do? And they're like, I don't know. Help us. It's kind of funny because, like I said, sometimes too, when this technology is brand new to somebody, if they've never touched this type of technology before, they're like, I just don't even know what all it can do. And we can show so much in a demo and we can talk about it as much as we want. But it's just like I said, we're constantly finding out new things you could do with it, or new scenarios, new ways to use it. So a lot of times it's like, throw ideas at me and I'll tell you yes or no. Like just,
see if we can make this work for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So if somebody's really interested in this and they want to hear more, obviously they should go to IDEA and check it out, right? Because they'll get to see what you've teased here. Is there something really cool coming there? Or they could just reach out to you and start a conversation and see where to go and set up that discovery meeting, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm saying your regional applications engineers, your regional sales guys, all of those types of people are good to kind of reach out to and contact and start those conversations. But I would say, you'll eventually get funneled my way. We'll have some conversations.
Cell phone number out on here for everyone to call and text you.
Carry one phone, so
No, because I was thinking too of even who this is meant for, right? It doesn't have to be maybe a new display each time. Like if a customer already has a display 5 years old or whatever it is, can they still get this? Or kind of like what's the market for where it actually fits, I guess?
Yeah, so I mean, there are certain hardware requirements from a control system perspective that we have to have. We have to have a certain level of media player that kind of has the horsepower, right, to pull this off, to actually render content on the fly. So there's some requirements there, but if you've bought a display in the past couple of years, like you said, you may already have that hardware. And if not, even if it was 5-6 years ago you bought a display, you might be primed for a control upgrade anyway. And we can kind of make sure we focus on that hardware that's needed to do this in that control upgrade.
Because they can be two separate things, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Right? You don't have to buy the new display to get this, but and you don't need a new display to get a new control system upgrade.
Correct. So. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. So we've covered a lot. Is there anything that really sticks out that that listeners or viewers should know about Camino that we haven't covered yet?
Like I said, the real-time render is really what kind of brings it to life. That's what Camino is, Okay. But with that, like I said, it opens up the ability to kind of build out animations on a timeline, keyframe out different animations that you can't do otherwise in a show control system. That automation, the data visualizations, all of that is really what real-time renders kind of sort of enable you to do. Like I said, there's a lot of different ways to approach it. There's a lot of different benefits. We have some people that, ask us, well, can I trigger content off of, the clock? I'm like, yes. But that is just one piece of what it can do, right? Like it can do a ton. So
tiptoeing.
Right. Which, I mean, great. Crawl before you walk before you run, right? Like you can grow into it. And one of the cool things about it too is the way the templates are built. Like I always tell people, you get this template built, this piece of content built. And if you ever want to play with it and try to add to it or tweak it or do something, make your own from scratch, just hit save as. And you've got a new copy that you can just play with. You don't have to worry about breaking yours. You can still run your production and play with this one over here. So like I said, there's just, I kind of equate it to other editing tools in the industry. Like you look at like an After Effects or something, right? Mm-hmm. There's a ton of tools in there. And it's knowing how to take all of those individual tools and put them together to actually create something cool, right? Yep. Even if you look at like Microsoft Word, you can bold your text or you can pick your font, right? They're pretty simple things, but it's like, how do I take all of these tools and put them together to really achieve something really dynamic, really creative? There's a lot of power there, and it's just a matter of, really, really kind of learning those skills and learning how to use those tools and putting them to work.
Nice. So if you're looking to do that with your production and your system and make some more dynamic stats or bring more things to life with some real-time render, we'll get you in contact with Eric.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for coming. I know you're in town for the week, though, but thanks for stopping by the podcast studio today here.
Thanks for having me.